Hello and welcome to the Coaching Crowd podcast with me, Jo Wheatley, and my friend and co-host Zoe Hawkins.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for listening. We are here this week to talk to you about loneliness as a coach. And the reason we're talking to you about this is because it can be lonely when you're working as a coach, particularly if you're coming from an environment where you're used to being part of a team or leading a team or, being surrounded by others. You may be driven by passion and desire to make a difference. And then you step into the role of coach. And the reality is, you can spend a lot of time on your own or in the role of a coach where you're with one other person and you're in service of them. So the people who are looking out for you suddenly goes down. So we wanted to just share some of our experiences and what you can do to resource yourself as a coach in this role.
Yeah, I think you all know that we like to keep things real, and we know a lot of people, thinking about uh, freelancing as a coach, setting up, their own business as a coach. And I think this is an important consideration to have. Like, how will you resource yourself so that you can sustain yourself in a coaching business, something that you really love? It's obvious probably that supervision is a key part of being able to sustain yourself, because if you're coaching clients and like I find coaching clients one-to-one, I love it. I really enjoy the intimacy of that space, really enjoy group coaching. Would I want to do all of this on my own without Zoe? I don't think I would enjoy it as much. I don't know if I would have stayed in it, as long as I have. I really enjoy that, and I know that about me. So I think you have to start by reflecting internally about what are the things that you enjoy. I love working from home and being in the space on my own, but I love having that connection. So supervision is fundamental. So let's say you come out of a coaching session or a number of coaching sessions, you've got loads of stuff floating around your mind, you're reflecting on, yeah, I think I did that really well. What if I didn't? I wonder if there's another way to look at this. I wasn't sure what to do at that point. I think it went okay. Clients said it was really useful, but I don't know. I think, all of that rumination, sometimes it's a case of like, how do you stop the rumination? Sometimes you just have that craving. I just want to talk this over with somebody else. So that may be a supervisor. So having that formal thing, which is part of being an ethical coach anyway, developing your practice, but supervision is also for your well-being and to support that. If you've got other coaches, perhaps those that you trained with that you can reach out to, or other coaches that you've met in different CPD events, and just say, hey, could I, are you free? Could we just chat about, a client situation that I've got? That can really help with the loneliness too.
Well, we did peer supervision for many years, didn't we,
Mm.
before we formalized that arrangement. And I had my final supervision session with a group of learners last night. And there was that expression of, I don't think I'm quite ready to sort of leave the container yet. And we talked about continuing for them to continue on their own. So they've developed amazing reflective practice skills, really supportive of each other and being able to help each other to deepen their reflective practice without rescuing or reassuring, which is something different. And so, when you come on a coaching training program and you go through experience, you're likely to form bonds with other people, and those relationships can last a lifetime. We know of people who we trained, well before 2020, who still come together as peers. And it's somehow how our relationship formed, wasn't it? We weren't coaches
Mm.
at the time, but we were on a training program doing our masters and
Mm.
we had that connection. And here we are today, So if you're thinking around, oh, I do want to be a coach, but I'm just not sure I can handle the quiet, like you get to create the experience that you want to have. So if you already know that being independent isn't going to be for you, have your eye on where are the communities that you can form relationships and get involved in the coaching community. We were recently interviewing for supervisors to support our program in the future. And the conversations we had were just so special because we were able to really connect with other people in the industry who we hadn't been able to make contact with. But now we know that these people exist, whether they all come to work for us or not. We've got limited places, but some amazing souls that are doing amazing work. And now we're connected, and who knows where those relationships may go. And so I think that if you know that you are prone to loneliness, without having people around you. Personally, I would say there is no better industry to be in than the coaching industry, because everybody is so
Mm,
supportive. Certainly in the space that we play in, in the
mm.
professional coaching industry, everyone is so supportive. They look out for each other. I would say there's more of a spirit of support and collaboration over competition. I don't get that essence in this industry.
Mm. I think also even outside of the industry, if you're, working on your own and you're working from home, getting out, just actually getting outdoors. So when I go out and walk the dog, I might see no one. And sometimes I love that. But I might also see lots of people and then have lots of random conversations about nothing or something really important. But I'm just connecting with other human beings. And the same as in-person events, like it doesn't all have to be online. If you're somebody that is doing the majority of your coaching online, and a lot of coaches do, but you miss the in-person connection, then join your local, a business club, or that kind of thing, and go and have the breakfast, go and have lunch date, or think about other people that are sole traders that work in your area that perhaps want to do that. Co-working is a great thing to look into as well. If you're a coach and you think, do you know what, I'm happy working from home, but I'd really love like a day or two a week just to be able to, be in the space and have that sort of white noise background, and also to have other people curious about what I'm doing. And I think that can be something when you're starting out and you feel like you're doing all this legwork to try and let people know what you're doing, and it feels like you're the one with the speaker having to get that out there. And probably what you could be craving is other people being curious about you, or what is it that you do? And sometimes that's just about being able to be in a space, for long enough that
Mm.
people start to think, oh, who is that? What is it that he or they or she do? So there's some practical considerations to have.
It's balance, isn't it? I think, yes, me and you have each other, and that can become isolating in itself
Mm,
because we have each other. So
mm,
we lean into this relationship and forget about all the others that we could be building.
mm,
And
mm,
it was a couple of years ago now, we decided to invest in a mastermind where we formed other relationships. And whilst it wasn't perhaps the space that was 100% a fit for us, what that did do is remind us of the importance of relationships. And so we are now actively, it's on our plan for 2024 to be building and leaning into other networks and finding other founders and CEOs and leaders where we can establish a different level of connection. It's the relationships that we're looking for that fill the need that we have today. Whereas
mm,
when we started, the need we have then was that sort of confidence and reassurance in doing this together and having that experience. So your needs in whatever role you're in are going to change over time.
mm,
So I think what we're saying is part of stepping in to being a coach and recognizing the loneliness is checking in with, what are my needs? How do I work at my best? And how can I create and resource a career for myself where I can work at my best? And that may not be about being with others all the time. It might just be around recognizing you're going to have to put aside, say, a budget for CPD where you can go and be in containers with other people, where you can forge, real, genuine connections. I remember doing my supervision program. We had this relationship and this business going. I did my supervision training, met Kirsty Maynor, who's a friend and coach of mine. And I ended up doing some work for her business, supporting her with a supervision project that she was doing because I loved the relationship. It was a genuine friendship that we struck up, and she needed support and I had the skills. So it didn't stop at prevent me from working in this business. It was just another meeting of hearts and minds. And you just never know where those opportunities are going to present themselves.
It's interesting, like our relationship, because lots of people comment on it and are interested in it. I think when we find ourselves in social spaces or, networking spaces or so on, the fact that we have our relationship can alter the dynamic. So even when you and I consciously are like, right, we're basically approaching this as if almost as if we don't know each other, I'm going to be over, we're not going to stick to each other. Somehow, still, I think there is a felt sense. I feel that people engage differently as a result of me being at something with somebody else, whereas everybody else might have come on their own. But even separate to our relationship, I think it can, you just can feel lonely at times. So it's not a case of, oh, I know I like working at home on my own, or I like having a business on my own. There can still be moments or times where you just feel that. And it's about, do you allow yourself to notice that? Or do you notice that you have a kind of a defensive shutdown? No, I don't. I'm not someone who experiences loneliness, because some people would consider that to be a weakness, and I don't see it as a weakness. I think, as you described, Zoe, it's just, being in touch with what your needs are. And when you feel that way, that it may not always be the same solution that you need. So
Mm.
sometimes it might be, I'm gonna go to the gym, because there's people there. I don't think anybody will speak to me, but I'll just be with other people. I just want to be around that sort of that energy of other people. And other times it might be reaching out to somebody, say, hey, do you want to meet up for lunch? Or do you want to go for dinner tonight? Or maybe you just set up a social engagement, nothing to do with your business, but you just, want to be with other people. And we're talking about this today because we see it in our community. So we create communities. It's what we do. We consider our coaching qualifications to be communities. We consider our Facebook group, the coaching crowd, to be, well, it is a community, of like-minded people. We've got our business lounge, which is supporting people with the business side of coaching. That's a community. And we created those because I think life is about communities. Like the world is a community. There's lots of communities within that, and having a place that you can dip in and dip out of as and when you need to, but you have a sense of, these are people like me, is really helpful.
Mm. Emotions are transient, aren't they? And I think to recognize loneliness, it's a point in time. It
Mm.
doesn't necessarily mean that being a coach is a lonely role. I don't experience it as a lonely role. Yes, there are times when I experience loneliness. And for me, the loneliness can sometimes be an indication of I'm serving too much and not being served enough. And I think
Mm.
that's what we started with around
Mm.
supervision is, it's a very giving role being a coach and a coach trainer, so we hold a lot of people in our energy and in our space
Mm.
at any one particular time. And if you're doing that all the time for others, but there's no one doing it for you, that's where that kind of loneliness can creep in. And if you're not careful, that can become resentment, I think,
Mm.
or certainly a disconnect with the passion for what you do. So, yeah, recognize, I think, that emotions are transient, and however you may experience becoming an independent coach in the role, it's not to be frightened by a sense of loneliness if that stumbles upon you, but just to be like, oh, okay, this is new. How am I going to work with that and resource myself? Because that you're in the driving seat. I think that's the great thing about independence from a corporate world. You get to make the decisions and you get to craft the experience.
I feel less lonely as a coach in my own business than I ever did when I was in the corporate world.
Mm,
If I think
yeah.
if I think back to the roles that I held in the corporate world, there were so many times where I felt lonely because my values didn't seem to be fully aligned to the organization at times, or particular individuals, or or other relationships where I would, and that can be really confusing. So I actually believe that, to be human is to experience and to feel loneliness. Like, we come into the world on our own, we exit the world on our own. And when you think about that, for me, that's quite a lonely thing. It sort of exudes feelings of loneliness, and that can feel a little bit scary. In that way. And so that's what, but as human beings, we seek relationships with others, I think, often to quell the reality that that it can be quite a lonely experience to be in life. So that's maybe a little bit deep for a 20-minute podcast,
I was
but
just sat here thinking, like, that's an interesting perspective. Like, we come into the world on our own and we leave on our own. It's like, maybe we'll open that one up another time. I'm not sure I have the same experience there, but I hear what you're saying, which is maybe we don't ever expect to feel lonely, you know, and there's this precursor of emotions are good or bad, which we
yeah.
say they're not. Obviously, that's part of the emotions coaching practitioner training, and that loneliness isn't a bad thing. Actually, it's
Mm-mm.
just a cue. And like I think what I'm hearing from you is it can be a cue for connection.
Yeah.
And actually, what better role can you connect with people than having deep and satisfying and fulfilling conversations with the people who you're there to help and serve? So it can actually, on the flip side, be probably one of the most connected places that you would experience. So I think the
Oh,
message is just to not worry about it.
I think the also if we turn it around, yes, loneliness could be a cue to reach out to others, but loneliness, a feeling of loneliness could also be a cue to connect more deeply with yourself. So if you think about the title, the title of our business is In Good Company. And we lots of people say to us, I love the name of your business. And then when we explain the rationale behind it, which is our desire is to, in some way, to support people to feel that they are in good company when they are on their own, as well as to feel in good company when they are in a team or, a community, and again in the wider world. But just starting with that kind of first sphere, I think there's lots of people in life that don't feel in good company when they are on their own, that want to escape the sort of the inner dialogue that they might experience in that way. So I do think that feeling lonely can be a cue to go deeper. And it's I think it's always useful just to be able to have that 360 when you're reflecting on, what are my needs when I notice that I feel this way. And also you may experience sort of physical cues or thought cues that you might associate with loneliness. It may not actually be loneliness. There's a little bit deeper again, Zoe. I'm like, what did I have for breakfast this morning?
A little snapshot into our late night conversations, isn't
Mm,
it?
mm.
Anyway, I think to bring this to a wrap up, if you're thinking of training and developing as a coach, and you're thinking, I don't know whether I can handle the independence and the isolation. Um, I think the piece that stands out for me is, as you said, Joe, that you have felt lonelier in other roles than you have in the role that you have. And I can echo some of that. And I think also take away the message that the coaching community is probably one of the most welcoming communities that I think you would come across. And there is certainly no need to be lonely. The connections are there to be made.
Yeah, and I think I would like to say we're here for you. And I recognize that this podcast, for some coaches that listen to the podcast, is part of their strategy to feel connected, and to not feel lonely on your own. You may listen to different podcasts and think, oh, I feel that too, or oh, cool, like I do that. Oh, that's really good to hear. And you may find yourself already in our coaching crowd community, and you'll have already experienced the support that there is from other coaches in that community, wherever you are in the world. So, we're here for you, however you engage with us, whether that's on our coaching qualifications, our emotions coaching practitioner, CPD, in our coaching crowd community, or even reading our book.
Yeah, and if you don't know where to find those communities, you can head over to our website and check out igcompany.co.uk/lounge, and you can get on the wait list for our business lounge there. So that's the community that supports in building a business that will be open again, I'm sure, at some point this year. And the other community you referenced there was the free Facebook group, the Coaching Crowd.